the psycho of all psychos, Norman Bates, aka Ed, aka Psycho. He comes from a family of crazies. In this, I'm not going to be doing, it's not going to be just a profile of the Norman Bates that we know from the 1960 movie. It's going to be through the first 4 films. And if you haven't seen the sequels to Psycho, you're missing out. I completed all of them this year, and it was a great journey following one of the greatest characters I've come across. So, let's start off with the 4 films. So I'm going to be going over Psycho 1, Psycho 2, Psycho 3, and Psycho 4, the beginning where they do flashbacks of the relationship between him and his mother. My psychological analysis would be obviously split personality developed to suppress the guilt of murdering his mother, socially awkward after years of sexual and emotional abuse from his schizo mother. And they go into that in great flashbacks in the 4th one. And Henry Thomas, the boy from E.T., plays a young Norman Bates. And Olivia Hussey, a legendary actress, plays Norman's mother. So definitely go and check that out. Then the journey that they take him on. His mother is, so basically he comes from a family of mentally ill, like I was saying. His mother is schizophrenic and borderline personality disorder, as it describes it, who has brainwashed her son, who is a psychopath himself. Sexually confused by his mom telling him that all women are evil, whores. And that's why he becomes jealous of his mother's new boyfriend and relationship. And ends up acting out in his uncontrollable rage and lashing out by killing his mother. And that's when he develops the split personality disorder. He has an uncontrollable hatred towards all women. He could burn the house down, but his mother will always influence his mind because he was brainwashed as an infant. So let's go over the history. Not to mention that when he was an infant, he was stolen by Emma Spool. Now I'm going into hardcore spoiler territory, so watch the films. His father was in a love triangle with his mom, Norma Bates, and Emma Spool, her sister, who is crazy out of her mind, even more so than Norma. And she ended up stealing Norman, and then she ended up getting institutionalized for 20-something years, just like Norman. And then obviously Norman gets back by his mom, brainwashed like I go over, and they go into detail in the movie. And then obviously everyone knows the events of Psycho 1, and that ends up getting Norman pleading insanity and end up serving 22 years until he's let out in 1982. And then his crazy aunt comes to even brainwash him some more. He's also tormented in that movie by Lily Crane, the victim of Mary Crane, sister of Psycho 1. Just a great story, but the way they execute is kind of dumb. A great quote from him is when he answers the phone and they're playing with his mind, thinking that he's mother so they could send him back to jail. But the doctors think he's cured because they've really worked with him, because they've obviously separated him from that house and they've gotten into his mind. Because Norman's really a good guy when it comes down to it. He has good traits, but he can't, obviously he is mentally ill, so he can't control his feelings towards other people because he was brainwashed. But when he's detached from his mother's evil influences is what I'm saying. Obviously he's evil, but they could detach him temporarily like they do in Psycho 2, and he's fine for most of the movie. And then Emma Spool's aunt, shows up at the ending for one of the best, most underrated endings in a horror movie sequel I've ever seen. She comes up, showing up at the house, and you're like, who the F is this? And she admits that she was killing all the people in Psycho 2. And then he ends up poisoning her and hitting her over the head, and after she reveals that he's his mother. And now he's even more confused, and the cops took away his mother's corpse, Norma's corpse, so he uses her corpse now. And then that carries on into Psycho 3, where he's completely insane at that point and still living at his home field advantage, the freaking Norman Bates Motel. Until a reporter comes along and does the investigation and reveals to him that Emma Spool, is actually what it is, Emma Spool, was his aunt, and his mom was really Norma, obviously, which is who he thought was his mom all along. And so, at the end of that, he ends up, to getting out of that, but he already killed a bunch of people, and they find out. He also ends up stabbing Emma Spool's body, and dust comes out of her old corpse. I was mentioning this in a group, that the attention to detail of it just not being a prop, but the dust coming out when he stabs it, just great. That's the only good scene in Psycho 3. That's the ending is the only worth scene. And so he's sent back to the insane asylum. The doctors think that they cured him again, and he's released, script convenience. And he calls into a radio show, and they reveal flashbacks. I don't like the tale that they go, and then they end up making him burn down the house as his retribution to finally getting away from his mom, and he's having a child with the doctor that cleared him, and he's afraid that the child's gonna be insane. Oh, I should have showed you. That's Emma Spool, and obviously the corpse of the mom. I forgot to switch it anyway. But before I get too away from the detached here, so he burns down the house to finally get over it. But I forgot to say, in his teens, he lashed out and killed some girl that tried to get in his pants. He also obviously murdered his mom and his boyfriend. Weapon of choice, the butcher knife, obviously. And ever since then, the Psycho's weapon of choice has been the butcher knife. He also likes to poison the tea. He's appeared in 4 films. Obviously, you guys might have heard the making of Hitchcock also. I think they switched the name to Hitchcock, just Hitchcock. They're going to do a documentary, a film within a film, coming up with Scarlett Johansson as Mariane Crane. And this British actor who is in An American Haunting is playing, look it up. I think his last name is Doring or something. Anyway, and then there's going to be a TV series based on the young teenage Norman Bates, but it's obviously going to be someone in their mid-20s. I always thought Topher Grace would play a good Norman Bates, but he's getting kind of older now. But he has personality traits similar to Anthony Perkins, but Anthony Perkins' portrayal as the young Norman Bates in Psycho 1, which is filmed in 1960, is just classic. The quirkiness that he gets down and the weirdness is just perfect. Rarely has a psychopath been portrayed that good on screen, and he had not little to go off of in terms of doing research on other people who have played psychopaths. Obviously there's been a number before that, but he epitomized the character of a horror psychopath, just to say the least. Location, Bates Motel, Fairvale, California. Occupation, hotel manager, dish bitch at the diner. Wardrobe, overall sweater, khaki dress pants. Mother's wardrobe. Favorite things is to peep on the women guests in cabin 1. Taxidermy birds. He also ends up taxiderming his mother, obviously inspired by the serial killer Ed Gein from Wisconsin. Another one of his favorite things is being sober. because he's already f***ed up in the head enough. Quote, "My mother is dead." In the trailer of Psycho 2 on the phone. Just classic. Just watch the trailer to Psycho 2, and I guarantee you're going to want to watch the movie. Most of the movie sucks, but the ending is so worth it. It's just classic. Best death scene is the ending of Psycho 2, when he whacks his aunt Emma Spool in the head. Just classic. Oh man, and he like poisoned her tea right before, then he whacks her in the head right when she starts to feel it. Just classic. I think I went over pretty much everything that I wanted to go over in this. This is JBM from VillainNews, and subscribe for more videos on horror villain profiles and give me suggestions of villains to do.